Okay, welcome everybody to our next episode on eco-friendly landscaping. Just to back up a bit, and I was just talking about this before, but when we founded Terra, our motto was greening the green industry, and a lot of that is involved with using organic products or organic based products and feeding the soil and all that, but it also has a lot to do with the type of equipment that's used. Lately, I'm sure you're aware, there have been all kinds of issues coming up with bans on blowers and stuff because of noise and everything, but there's a lot more to it than that, and that's why I asked Dan to give his presentation today. I met Dan earlier last year at a New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association meeting, and he gave a very good presentation on battery operated equipment. And so I thought that what he's been doing fits very much right in with what we're trying to do. So Dan, I'm going to hand it over to you, and it's your show from now on.
Well, thank you very much, Barry. I want to thank Terra for having us on. Also, I know there's some people that we recognize that we're familiar with. Also, non-toxic communities. I think Rick from McCoy Horticultural might be joining, and my colleague Jamie Banks at Quiet Communities. If you're out there, definitely wanted to give a nod to all of you who've definitely been very instrumental in helping AGSA further our message. I'm Dan Mabe, founder of the American Green Zone Alliance. It's AGSA is our acronym. And tonight, we're just going to give you a background of why AGSA started, how AGSA started, and where AGSA is today. And I believe, Barry, we were going to talk about AGSA's stance on bans, restrictions, and regulations. So a little background about myself. I do come from the gas industry. By circumstance, as a pretty young kid, I ended up in a place. It's a long story, but I'll give us the Cliff Notes version. Ended up in a place where the man of the house was a high volume gardener. So I started spending my weekends and summers doing high volume gardening work, first around gas tools, then graduating to using them. I also had my own gas business. I circled back to the business after graduating junior college. And I started out with gas, but then with the interactions with people that were very vexed by the noise, I really wanted to seek an alternative. And I did. Back in the mid-2000s, I researched all non-gas equipment alternatives back then, and there were not many. Most of them were plug-in. And the ones that were on the market that were battery were seal lead acid and nickel cadmium chemistry tools with brush motors. But I decided to give it a go. I actually pulled a second mortgage out on my home and started a company called The Green Station. And I did that entire conversion on a natural gas van, where I put solar panels on the van and did a backup storage with inverter, so that system could contribute to charging the batteries. And I was just doing this way, I don't know. I don't know if we were the first, but definitely one of the first for sure. I didn't know how that was going to go, but to our surprise, we had built this business up in less than 2 years to about 70 clients. And we were able to charge 30 to 40% more than the competition, who were your general proprietors in a pickup truck, the run and gun crews, if you will, that are just in and out as fast as they can go with that gas equipment. And, after dealing with some pretty picky homeowners for a few years, I decided, there's a different calling to all of this a higher calling. So instead of selling this route to another company, which I initially tried, but no one could fathom what we were doing and how we were doing it and why we were doing it, I kept trying to explain, look, people are paying more, and I've made a business model out of this. And back then, the drought was really prolific as it stands today in Southern California. We were doing quite well with our enhancement work on top of the low noise services by offering the natives, the permeable ground covers, the drip and drought tolerant irrigation. It was really good. But again, trying to sell the route and the concept to somebody, it just was so foreign to everyone back then. I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this opportunity and make an educational model out of this. So we basically gave the route away to 4 individuals, and we endowed them with the equipment. And we told them, like, that's kind of like a 3 strikes rule. You can't use gas at these people's homes and these clients' homes because they're paying for you to use the electric. And definitely, we were able to put that 3 strikes rule in, use gas a 3rd time, and then you're out of there. That was way back then. We were just, experimenting with things. But long story short, it went really well. And we were able to convert 3 of those 4 gardeners into doing this line of work in this way. And again, it wasn't for them completely cold turkey, no gas. For us, it was. But definitely they were able to incorporate at least 80% of the gas alternative operations and make more money doing it. So that's a little background of how and why AGSA got started. And then I really wanted to hone in on a couple of things here, and I have my notes. Let's talk about gas leaf blowers and how that transition looks, if you will. So I'm going to start my slideshow, and I'm going to give some other concepts about what AGSA does, but we're going to definitely in a few slides get right over to the gas leaf blower transition slides. Okay, so we already know who AGSA is, but I'll just remind everyone, we are a leader in low impact grounds maintenance strategies. We are not cold turkey. You have to go fully electric and fully organic because we just know that that's not practical when helping to educate the entire industry. So we do this a few different ways. We created the AGSA Green Zone certification standard. That is property transition. I'm going to give a couple of examples of that. And then also our engagement with the workforce of this industry, AGSA Service Pro certification. It really lends to a behavior modification with the men and women who actually are boots on the ground for all of our communities, whether it's gas or electric. They're beautifying our communities, they're keeping our property values high, and they're keeping blight from setting in and keeping everybody's morale high. So a very valuable industry to our society. So we really have to give a nod and acknowledge the men and women who do this work every day. So we love to engage with them. And we've worked extensively with our nonprofit partner, Quiet Communities, to develop our online certification course. It's in English, it's in Spanish, and we're receiving some very positive feedback with that. And then lastly, number 3 here is AFTC. It stands for AGSA Field Tested Certified. We independently test battery electric tool platforms and systems. We're now testing robotic systems. And the reason why we have to do this is early on, when we started to expand our green zone footprint and or model, we were very comfortable with the tool lines we were using, but then new companies approached us and said, our stuff is great. It's less expensive. It's more powerful. And we took their word for it. And we almost went out of business because of that, because we recommended those platforms along with the ones that we were already using successfully. And to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, clients of ours had purchased those separately of us. We don't sell the stuff at all, but we said, hey, here's these new lines that are available for these projects to meet the standard. It failed miserably. So we went back, we started to lick our wounds and figure out, how do we prevent this from happening to us ever again? And more importantly, to anybody else that's out there, because when you're purchasing this electric equipment, if there's no programs out there that offset the cost of this equipment, it's anywhere from 35 to 50% more expensive to get into upfront than their gas counterparts. So people really do need to do their research and make sure that they get into things that are going to pan out and get to their ROI and still remain profitability with their businesses, and then institutionally with their operations. Okay, so this demand for change, we're going to jump ahead a little bit, but here's just a quick snapshot of
ask a question first.
Oh, sure. Sure.
We have a question from John, and he said, I've researched companies with voltages from 18 to 120. Do you have a preference?
We feel that 36 to 48 volt might probably be the most common and reliable voltages, if you will. Voltage does not tell the entire story. You could basically make a tool that's 24 volt to operate as powerful as an 82 volt, but there's a lot of little things in between. But it seems like the 36 to 48 volt is a very safe voltage. It allows for adequate power, but also good run times for that power, if you will. And these voltages, with the companies that have these voltages, they tend not to change them. They stay uniform, and usually they're not going to change it up on us midstream and try to go to some higher hybrid voltage where they could capitalize on the marketing of that. Okay, so top 10 impacts of gas operations. Of course, you see noise at the top and in the center. We know about the emissions. There are definitely health risks, especially for the workers. The vibration of gas tools, I prefer to use electric. And I remember converting again when we didn't even have lithium tools. I was forced to actually make my own lithium batteries to work with the electric tools that were on the market. And by the way, to that last question, it was 18 volt, 24 volt, and 36 volt batteries that we made to work with the equipment that was on the market. There are some solid and toxic waste issues with maintaining small gas engine fleets, cradle to grave. Definitely you're going to have a footprint there when it comes to that. And then, gas is going to require more maintenance than their electric counterparts, and they can be more expensive over time. However, electric could really, it can fall flat on its face if there's not worker adoption and the tools are not taken care of properly. Okay, so how did we get here? Again, focusing on the gas leaf blower, this just goes to show it's not just in California or New York. This is a movement that's well organized, that's been sweeping the country. And this movement is largely responsible to a lot of the local and now even state level regulation and bans that are being put in place or are being considered?
Yeah, I'll just chime in there and say here in New Jersey, Maplewood has been a front runner for years on that. And, just because of the noise, they've been trying to ban gas blowers.
Absolutely. Noise is real. Noise is physical. And to Diana's point, it is a form of pollution. Here we see this. These are city workers from a popular city by the beach in Southern California. This city prides themselves on being one of the greenest cities in the world, yet their workers call AGSA, and we won't impugn a city's name, and they call AGSA, and they're telling us that they want to use the electric tools, be trained, and have this transition. Definitely AGSA is really concerned about the workforce. This gentleman on the left, he had to invest in his own mask that is rated to protect him from PM, particulate matter, 2.5 microns and smaller, if you will. So we have a lot of work to do, but at the same time, AGSA's point is we're not making gas evil either. This is the technology that has helped this industry become very valuable to us and thrive and is responsible for a lot of people's livelihoods. So AGSA's position is neutral on bans, restrictions, and regulation. We prefer a carrot approach rather than sticks. But at the same time, we want to impart the information to these folks and others who wish to make this change themselves. Okay, gas leaf blower replacement. Again, humans are doing this work. We cannot demonize them. These folks are there to help us beautify our neighborhoods, our cities, our communities. I listed all that earlier, but again, we see this happening all the time. We read articles that don't directly demonize the workers, but there's some pretty harsh language for the industry, and it ends up demonizing the people using this equipment. So I'm always writing emails, trying to correct people's facts when they write these very eloquent articles. For example, saying that the cost of lithium batteries is coming down, which no, it's going up. These are people not from the industry who elaborate on the industry and feel that they know what's best for the industry. They may know what's best for the environment. That's for sure. They may know what's best for quality of life issues, but in AGSA's opinion, we really do have to work together and everybody as stakeholders and find a solution, if you will.
Yeah, Dan, I agree 100% with that. Obviously I talk to a lot of landscapers, and, most of their feeling is with battery operated, it's a good option. It might not be all there right now, but they certainly don't want it forced down their throats.
Absolutely, and nobody does. With that being said, AGSA does acknowledge the noise, the localized pollution, and definitely people have the right to exercise what they're feeling and upset about, and their right to their quality of life. Again, we just offer what we feel are solutions for everybody, and we really feel that it starts with this picture right here. This is boots on the ground, brick by brick, going out there, engaging the workforce, the management, the companies, making them stakeholders, and telling them honestly what works, how, where, and why, and where things are going to fall short. And definitely we tell them in no uncertain terms, when you make these conversions, your approach to operations is going to have to modify a bit to accommodate this different technology. Even though it has come very far, and a lot of the tools out there can, in a lot of cases, operate apples for apples with their gas counterparts. Again, this is what it takes. And I think being honest with the industry is a good start, and including them as a legitimate stakeholder, not just saying we put communications out, we asked for opinions. No, I think that this has to be a programmatic approach, just like a lot of things that society wants to change. And we really need to make sure it's equitable, because we always hear that word now. It's a really big buzzword now. If we're talking about equality, then we need to look at how the solar industries, the EV industries have been heavily funded and monetized by government. And then we need to take a look at, well, how much has really gone into this? And when you compare the two, it's, we have a lot of work to do there as well. So the keys to this, and let me move this bar up a little. These commercial implementations, we feel education is the most important. Testing. We need to allow the industry to test these platforms in their maintenance settings before they purchase tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and batteries. Definitely need to help with that approach that we mentioned, verify all of that. And then, as I just mentioned again, throw some legitimate resources at it, not a pat on the head, and we'll call it a day. I'm talking a sustained, adequate resource mechanism. So give me a second. This thing got stuck, and I don't know why, but let's see. There it is. Okay. So we know Richard McCoy of McCoy Horticultural, and all of the green zone cities we've done, and the companies we worked with, we know they're not going to be doing this. So if there's anybody out there that's going to participate in this talk, our presentation, if you go out and you say, you know what, I want to do this, make sure you don't do this. Don't use power strips. This is a disaster waiting to happen. This is going to result in a lot of bad things. First of all, it can hurt somebody, if not kill them. Not only that, it's going to be a losing proposition in your investment. These tools here are less than 2 years old, yet they've been treated so ugly and with such neglect, almost disdain, that any kind of warranty that is on these tools will not be honored, because this is just gross neglect. So staying on gas leaf blower replacement, just to understand, the top electric models are not going to compare to the top gas models that are out there. Gas models, I mean, they can go anywhere from 500 to 1,000 CFM, over 200 miles per hour out of their nozzle. And then the electric ones, they're going to max out 657, about 150 out of the nozzle, but then those run times are going to shorten dramatically. And depending on the workload situation, especially in the fall, and it's damp, we have a 10 to 35% work production loss range here. It can be even higher than that. So that's why AGS is going to stress this. Best practices have to be part of this equation. An example of best practices, a lot of people know this on this call already, is mulching. But it's not as simple as just mulching. There's definitely going to have to be, in some areas, some of those volume of leaves have to be picked up. You can do old tarping, old school style, and you ramp up labor, but then someone's going to have to pay for that labor. So someone's paying no matter what. We just don't know who. It's either going to be the client. It's going to be perhaps governments who help with these conversions. And then the companies themselves. So I think we need to balance all of it out and work together to find ways to do this. In the fall, AGSA has gas concessions for the Northeast and other areas of the country where leaf season it's such a high volume. These companies are expected to give them what their clients want. And most of their clients do not buy into ecology yet. And that is another thing that we have to consider is the property owners need to be a part of this movement, and they need to be equally educated. That way people can have realistic expectations to add more ecology and then have more quiet and not require companies to invest tens of thousands of dollars in batteries to handle fall workloads. So right now we do have fall concessions for gas leaf blower use just for the fall. Other than that, we feel everything else can be with electric and people powered and still be profitable. So speaking of cost, again, I read these articles from people that are not from the industry, but they're from politics, and they've used their platforms to shed light on this. And a lot of good has come out of that. I really want to give credit there. But again, we become frustrated when we see erroneous things being published, again, from people that don't have to do this for a living. You can see these backpack batteries on the left, $1,500 to $1,700 a piece, $1,400. The system on the right is a $300 to $400 system, but you would be required to purchase an additional 8 to 10 batteries to go on that system to make it worth its while. If you're an operator that is going to insist on doing everything you're doing the way you're doing it with gas and not really going to make adjustments to the electric when it comes to blowing. Let's just say some of these operations legitimately would need 4 to 5 of these backpack batteries to handle their given workloads. You can do the math of just the batteries, then you need the chargers, then you need the blower, and it becomes an expensive proposition. So how do we know all this? Well, we've been doing it for 15 years, and we are out there every day, not 2 days a week, not 3 days a week, 6 days a week. And we're always comparing the best gas stuff to the best electric stuff. We're comparing how it works in different regions of the country with different levels of dampness and humidity and heat and all of that. And these are the types of things AGSA does so we can impart this data-driven collection that again is not politically or emotionally driven. It's data driven, and we impart this information to everybody who seeks it. Let's watch this video because it's very important. Okay, so there's a lot of good things going on here, but let me explain why it's so important to watch this. This is a school district. We won't name them. They have a lot of drought tolerant and natives in these beds, which is incredible for reducing pesticide use, conventional pesticide use, and water. But they were clinging to their gas tools, especially the blowers, because their aesthetic expectation was to strip this grass perfectly clean of not one leaf on it. So when they converted to electric, we had to go to the mat with management and administration and say, look, the electric equipment's not going to do that. You see one of the top models on the market struggling in Southern California to push these leaves off of the grass. So, this is where these best practices come into play. Now they are allowed to blow those leaves from the hardscape to the turf and then mulch with the mower. And that has been very critical to the success of a lot of these implementations that are converting specifically with the blower. Here's another one that's right out of the Northeast, North Westchester County, New York. That's an impressive blower. I mean, that's an impressive blower. By the way, this is damp conditions. However, that backpack battery on that gentleman's back is $1,800. And we timed the total runtime at 54 minutes and 37 seconds, which was impressive. Imagine what that can do in the summer and the springtime and dry conditions, hardscape. It can take care of you all day long, a couple of these batteries. But again, if the expectation is that this technology is to be used in the fall in areas of the country where people want these leaves off of their turf, then again, it's going to be a tough proposition. We need more of the education of leave the leaves, ecology, mulching, all of that. We need more of to pair with this movement, if you will, to help ease the pain on cost and workload demand on everybody.
Yeah, Dan, we've been promoting mowing leaves for years now. It just doesn't make sense to spend all the time and money removing it when you can mulch mow it, improve the soil, and get healthier turf grass.
Absolutely. Some of the pushback is they said they will mulch the leaves, but sometimes it can take longer and cost them more money to mulch the leaves than to just do it with their gas leaf blowers, which in some instances it is true. Some of us are telling them that it puts undue stress on their large mowers and shortens their lifespan as well. So we definitely are listening to the concerns and trying to find that balance. We do go out there and do this work manually under documentation, timing things, working as fast as we can possibly work with people-powered methods, if you will. And definitely, this is where homeowners who are ultimately our property owners, let's just say, they could be commercial, residential, institutional, they're the ones that control what happens on their property. So if you see something going on a property, just know that it is the desire of that property owner that wants it done that way. So we feel that they can step up, and if they want less gas leaf blower use in certain times of the year, be willing to pay the company a little more to take time to do it in different ways, if you will.
We got a couple of comments and questions here. First
Sure.
one is from John. He said, the biggest and loudest argument I hear from company owners is a lack of power to move wet leaves. I know that current equipment is close to defeating this argument. What are your thoughts on this pushback? I think you just sort of answered that a little bit.
I mean, some of these companies, John, are using, Echo PB770s, the Steel 800s. I mean, these things, the best electric can't come close. But for me, I can make it work because I want to make it work. And I'm experienced at making it work. But for the people who have just been using gas their whole lives, and that's all they know, it definitely is going to, we put it into these people's hands all the time and see the shock of, wow, this is definitely not as powerful as my gas one. But we have been definitely successful saying, okay, we understand that, but can you consider doing these other things and charging a little bit more and doing it this way? And we are having success on that, but they're definitely the top gas blowers on the market are going to outperform unequivocally the top electric ones.
So a couple more comments. We have at 54 minutes and 1,800 per battery is insane. That will be the end of small local businesses. That's from George. And then John says, I agree with George, the cost of batteries need to make more sense to sell the application.
Well, okay, that's true. And this is why we're unbiased and we're telling the truth. AGSA wants people to understand the realities of that. And this is why we're out there doing this. You can purchase those electric systems and use them in the spring and in the summer and have gas for just only the fall. And we know over 20 hybrid companies that are doing that who are profitable and making money. Then there's companies that have gone all electric, even in the Northeast, and they are profitable. But why? Is because they're employing different techniques to handle that high volume, and they're charging their clients more. So again, like I said, someone's going to have to pay. But the electric systems are definitely going to be a tremendous asset in those spring and summer months. And then here in Southern California, all year round, there's companies now that have really done this. And the proof is in the pudding. The cost of operation benefits are much better, and they don't have to deal with these type of conditions that we see pictured here. So definitely regionality is going to play a role in how this is laid out in certain parts of the country.
Okay, that's it for questions for now.
Well, my biggest problem, because I've been using Greenworks backpack blowers for over 3 years now, and I have over 20 batteries, and they last for about 40 minutes, use 2 at a time. And we don't have enough places to charge them.
You know what? I want you to get in touch with me because we have some turnkey charging solutions that we know of and have used ourselves. And definitely, yes, that's an issue. And we're familiar with that particular blower, and we just, it's powerful, but to put 2 small batteries in that backpack blower, to have all those batteries, we really feel that the ones pictured here with one large backpack battery, where that you would need maybe 3 or 4 of those to replace the 20 that you have. So definitely, how
long do they take to charge? Because part of the problem, and I see over and over again that there's the conversations nationally about switching to battery power, because you're right, most of the time you can talk your customers through the imperfections. Some people want to compost leaves anyway, but there's properties we're taking over 40 yards of leaves off their lawns, and they just don't have the room to compost that, because it's all sweet gums and oaks and maples and very mature trees. And the gumballs, oh man, anyway, that's another story.
No, but, I'm familiar with those, and we deal with those in the South a lot.
But the problem is that we just don't, the conversation nationally around this seems to omit or assume that anybody who has a landscaping business also has a shop with electricity, and I don't. So that's my biggest problem. I don't have the infrastructure to charge. So I've put converters in my trucks so that we have a 110 power in the trucks. But if we try to shut the trucks off and charge while we're stopped someplace working, we will drain the batteries on the trucks. So it's a really big problem.
Absolutely, it's a huge challenge. We do have some solutions, but this is why AGSA again is neutral on regulation and bans and not forcing this, because there are legitimate challenges there, and we do know of people who have gone home and plugged things in their apartment and caused some safety issues. So what we're saying is, where it's workload and economically feasible, then it's something that people definitely can pursue, and it is being done. So I definitely would like to show you some of the turnkey charging solutions that are online now that can definitely help with that. Those backpack batteries, if you drain them full, if you drain them from full all the way, they're going to take about 2.5 hours to recharge. But as you know, all of the lithium batteries, they have a BMS, a battery management system, and you can take advantage of opportunity chargers and charge them up certain percentages throughout the day. But where it's been successful is where there's been the wherewithal to invest in enough battery bank to handle the workload for the day.
That's what I've tried to do, but I just don't have any place to charge them at night.
Yeah.
And what I found is that for about a 40 to 50 minute, use, it takes 5 hours to charge a battery.
Yeah, no, that's not the case with the batteries that we know. I mean, and we test this stuff independently of the manufacturers. I really do encourage you to get in touch with me, because I would be more than willing to have a conversation with you and tell you some of the brands and the results that we have independent of the manufacturers.
Great. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'm really glad you brought all that up, because that is a reality that we all face moving forward.
Yeah, actually, one of the things, if you're in California, and because I know this is a part of the conversation with more and more people driving electric vehicles. My brother actually works in automotive battery technology and in California, and is the amount of stress it's going to put on the electric grid. So, and then the sourcing of people's electricity, and whether we're just kind of rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic, or if we're really making an impact in terms of reducing carbon emissions, if we're just getting our electricity from coal anyway.
Well,
and fracking.
You know what? If you're operating a gas fleet, and you switch to electric and you're charging on coal, you are substantially reducing your carbon footprint. That's one. Second, we haven't seen that doomsday scenario play out yet, even in California. I think with battery lawn and garden, especially the handheld tools, I don't feel that it's significant enough to put a strain on any grid yet. And I don't think it would, based on what I know so far. But when you have everything going online, especially the EV industry, and then you're getting into bigger platforms, then there definitely is going to be challenges to understand how to deal with charging those higher capacity batteries that are ranging from like 25 kilowatt hours up to 100 kilowatt hours. But for the smaller stuff, I really don't see that issue rearing its head yet.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so institutional green zoning, just really quick, some examples, and we show this because we've done this. This city, they've been converted to all electric, have no issues at all, going on over 6 years. We started with one of their larger parks. We took the data, no emotion, no politics, and we presented what the work production losses were for each tool, and then what the gains were in lower noise, obviously zero emission operations, and that cost benefit. They weighed everything out and they said, you know what, this is good for our city. We're moving forward. And for the Ags Green Zone certification for this particular city, it's everything is done for routine maintenance with battery electric and people powered tools. It's a big deal. Mayor, city council, members of Congress, a state senator were present because they followed this project and they understood how hard this city worked to become the first in the nation to do this. So they graced this ceremonies with their presence, which was nice. But South Pasadena is not messing around. Anybody who wants to do business there, definitely they have to be AGSA accredited, certified, or equivalent, but they do need to uphold the AGSA Green Zone standard that's in place for the city. We've done state parks, we've done golf courses. Shout out to my partner, Jamie Banks with Quiet Communities. We developed a way to measure all this, as I mentioned before. We can definitely take a project, as you just saw, and inventory the gas operations. And then when it converts, and it doesn't have to convert to 100%, it could be 70%, but we will tell you what that conversion looks like. And then we can put it into terms of how many trees are being planted or how many cars are taken off of the road. And then finally, the last few slides, and I know I said I was going to do a lot less, Diana, but we just got into this, and we'll definitely, I'm can't wait to get to a more robust questions and answers. But paradigm shift in New Jersey, Tony, we want to give him credit. Tony Lund is his name. He gave us these slides to use, and we all are in agreement that we need to kind of rethink what our landscape should look like. He called it plastic landscaping. We call it hyper manicured landscaping. And that's the standard that's been in place. We need more of this versus this. I know I'm preaching to the choir. So if you're out in the front lines, you're dealing with clients and all they know is this and they want this. It's so rewarding when a company could get them to start to convert and become more ecologically receptive, if you will, to the entire picture. Quieter battery electric tools, handheld tools, people powered, and then, more of those alternatives that are not conventional. Out west, it's all crazy out here. We're having what we call Tupperware parties, but with tools. We're brought in by various grassroots groups. They will gather 50 of their neighbors, and then we bring all the tools, and then they'll bring their gardeners, and then they are people with great means. Some of these people are actually producers and actors and actresses, but the people with the means are now starting to purchase suites of electric tools dedicated for their property. And then their gardeners, we train them to use the tools safely and to take care of them. And they don't need to pull anything off of their truck. They just go, they unplug, and they come back the next week, plug back in and come back the next week. Also, they're doing battery sharing co-ops now in these things where 10 people will have the same gardener. He or she has been around for years, talking more than 10 years in some cases. And they basically buy this gardener a set of tools, and then they purchase their own battery bank for their property. The gardener just comes and brings the tools, uses the batteries that are earmarked for that property, and then goes to the next. So there's a lot of cool concepts that are developing to help with this entire change, if you will, over to quieter technologies. And then finally, last two slides. This is an issue. It's an issue now. So when you talk about regulation, we are going to say this: you better add in that regulation that these batteries are, first of all, recovered properly, and then they're earmarked for repurposing. And then if they can't be repurposed, then they need to be recycled. And we do know and are involved in many projects where we have taken these repurposed 18650 cylindrical lithium cells and used them for solar storage, actually to run other equipment. They're used for flashlights. So there are companies that have recently come online that are making a business model out of repurposing lithium cells. And then the ones that cannot be do need to be basically filled up in a 40-foot container and shipped into South Asia for recycling. But they are recycling them, but it's a dirty business, just like recycling lead acid is, and just like the oil industry. It's all dirty, and it has an impact on us environmentally. But we just have to figure out what that balance is, and which ones can give us that better quality of life, in their useful life. So I really appreciate everybody sitting through that.
Dan, great presentation. I learned a lot. A couple of things that I'll point out is that what you're doing is pretty much in the infancy of these kind of products and equipment, and it's only going to get better. In the 20 years or so that I've been in the landscape industry, I've been seeing more and more of a dramatic shift away from the conventional means of managing turf and woody ornamentals and stuff, and the type of equipment we have fits right in there. And just a quick question: look 5 years in the future, and how do you think, what kind of improvements there will be with battery operated equipment?
We know of some stuff coming online where the batteries are going to have quicker charge capabilities, like much quicker, and it's not going to harm their overall cradle to grave cycle life potential. In fact, some of the chemistries we know that could and should be available 5 years from now, they will increase their cycle life, essentially becoming batteries that would last 15 years.
Wow.
And yeah, so battery chemistries are the biggest improvements. We don't see a lot more improvements with the motor technology. It is going to get better. It'll always be best to evolve its heat sinking capabilities to keep the heat down in the controllers and the motors, which are going to allow these things to go for 10,000 hours plus. So I think we're going to see much more reliable equipment that lasts longer, and the battery chemistries are going to be much more favorable, not only in terms of helping operations, but also to the environment, because they're going to last so long.
Okay, so any more questions from anybody? Comments?
Great presentation there, Dan. I really appreciate it. Very sensible. It's an up and down approach. It really answered a lot of questions for people. We have a very meat-headed clientele and in the electric purchasing area, unfortunately. But, facts will change everything over time. It's that simple. And I really appreciate your presentation.
John, thank you for that. We definitely want to be symmetrical and balanced and make sure that while we move ahead, we're setting the best examples possible. And that type of positive reinforcement is worth doing this every day. Thank you.
Yeah.
So George has his hand up, but he's got to unmute.
I think it's great that we're looking at battery options, but realistically for a small business where it's a single owner and maybe one part-time guy occasionally, this isn't realistic. I mean, I know what I go through. I know how my equipment operates. I maintain my equipment. And believe me, I can run a blower for 2 days on a tank of gas. I mean, I'm very conservative. I mulch up what I can. I pick up, I bag it. It is what it is. But to turn around and tell me that I have to do this is not realistic. It's putting small businesses out of business. And additionally, how much more can we add on to the price? I mean, fuel costs have doubled in New Jersey. Customers are screaming at a $2 increase per cut. I mean, let's be realistic. I turn around and tell them, listen, I got to buy new equipment because we go all electric. I'm done. Who's going to support me and my family? Who's paying my mortgage? Because I'm done. You know, we've got to be realistic. Let's look at what we have and be realistic with that. Additionally, the power grids are not going to support all of these electric cars and components. We have to be realistic. We are behind the time. And the last point I want to put out is, you know what? I'm sorry, but let's think about the countries that we're shipping the recyclables out to, because it's, as you put it, a dirty job. What are we doing to those people in those countries? Let's be realistic. You know, I mean, yes, gas does pollute, but if you maintain your equipment and you use it wisely, you're going to minimize the pollution. Thank you.
Yeah, no, George, those are all great points, and we're pretty much on the same page there. This is why AGSA doesn't say anybody has to do this. We're just a group of gas operators who decided to take this path and did well with it and share the information should somebody be able to take advantage of it. And definitely, we are defenders of small business, if you will. And this is why, again, we're not political and we're not emotional. We're just basically presenting the data. And thank you for that input, because a lot of valid points.
Yeah, just want to chime in for a moment on what George was talking about. I wrote an article not too long ago for our magazine entitled "The Blower Bans: Are We Bringing It Upon Ourselves?" And the problem is what I see during the summer. I mean, granted, we have wet leaves and piles of them in New Jersey. We are a very leafy state, lots of trees, and yes, we don't have the power on electric yet to move them. However, I see everybody using electric blowers throughout the late spring through the summer into the fall before any leaves fall, when a simple handheld electric walking around and brushing off a sidewalk works perfectly. No reason to start an electric blower in the middle of the summer, yet I see 1, 2, sometimes 3 guys get out and blow the living crap out of a property. So there are alternatives. There are a balancing act where you can shift your equipment at certain times of the year and allow for that little extra oomph where you don't pollute the air and you still accomplish your task.
Yeah, and Dan,
true.
you've been upright and you know, laying it out there, saying no, you're not there to enforce it. You're not there to force anybody to do it. Here are options, and the options are getting better all the time.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And again, we just feel outside of fall that this can be done. But to George's point, the small businesses need help. If there's going to be bans and restrictions, put into place, and they need resources to help get into the electric equipment. And George, AGSA is doing just that. We advocate for the small businesses to have resources if you guys are being forced to do it. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's a better option than, you know, as these bans increase, than being forced to rake everything.
You know, there's no simple answers to this because, you know, the noise drives people crazy. And to John's point, when we film crews and people using a hurricane velocity force gas leaf blower in the spring and summertime, you know, just really blowing some dust up are doing nothing. This has to do with this type of education and engagement. And you can minimize impacts just by teaching people to use gas equipment more properly. But we see just really gross neglect and improper use of this equipment, and we have brought it on ourselves, Barry. The industry definitely needs to take the lead on this and try to improve it and show people that, you know, that we're concerned with what they're feeling as well.
I want to just jump in real quick. You're 100% right. Majority of the properties that I cut during the summer months, I'll come out with a broom and just sweep off the walkway in the driveway because it's down to the line, because I bag it and it's sucking it up into the machine. So I get it, but I'm concerned with the whole states and towns shoving this down our throat. And in all honesty, I mean, are they putting businesses out? They are, because I can't afford to go out and spend $1,800 on a battery pack, or two of them, as for that matter. You know, it's not feasible, you know, for me to do that. And then you're talking also the additional money for the blower itself and everything else that's electric. I mean, the cost is not realistic for the small business. You know,
you're gonna need help, George. You're gonna need help. And this is again why we're in the back channels, just really trying to, you know, pragmatically and present that case. Because when we see things that are saying, oh well, we'll give them $150 or $300 to go towards a blower, I always will jump at the chance to show a legislator some of this data and some of the workload demands that are actually part of everyday life for you and all the other operators that do what you do.
I mean, I looked at a commercial mower that was electric, and with the batteries, I was looking at $36,000 for one mower. It's not realistic. I'm done.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
George has a good point there as far as the cost factor. And realistically, when you get right down to it, you have to look at it from an application standpoint, what you're going to use your equipment for. Mowers right now are really out there. When you can get a good ZTR for $8,000-9,000 versus a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 electric mower. Granted, we are not in the same ballpark. But, you know, truth be said, when it comes to those summer months, you know, instead of even a broom, George, you know, DeWalt has a simple blower that you could just dust off with very quickly, and the batteries last quite a while. You bring 2 batteries with you for the day, you'd probably be okay. But that's, you know, all application. You got to think about what you want to do and how you want to impress the client. But like you said, you have issues. And everybody's pushing back with inflation. Everybody says, why are you raising your prices? Well, look at the news, and that's the story. But hey, I wish everybody the very best. And this is a movement that's going to continue. And hopefully one day some of our states will chime in and at the very least talk about rebates for our businesses.
I wish that at the very least the towns that create blower bans would actually abide by them themselves, because they don't, at least not here. And it creates a lot of problems.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's, see, when we showed you, Daria, when we showed you that AGSA green zone certification model, a lot of the cities have set the examples themselves, which they should first.
In fact, there's plenty of videos of them even using leaf blowers in the middle of the winter to dust snow off of sidewalks.
Well, we don't, if there's safety issues and snow removal, we don't, AGSA doesn't address that, but we do feel strongly that communities who are going to enact a ban or restriction should set the example
I
themselves.
agree with you. I
They don't
agree.
have to do an AGSA green zone. They could if they want to be independently verified, but they should definitely set the example themselves.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Maria, I see you had your hand up before. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I just wanted to propose that perhaps the industry needs to get more involved in crafting the bans in a way that doesn't specify outlawing specific equipment, but perhaps setting noise level goals and dust level, goals, and so that it's more likely that somebody could like sweep off the sidewalk and that would take care of the issue. I don't know if that's realistic, but to make it more functional rather than equipment oriented bans.
I can tell you from where I am, and there's a lot of legal arguments in northern New Jersey over this, and there are noise ordinances, and in terms of decibels, there's air quality ordinances, and the manufacturers make sure that all their equipment fit those ordinances. And California, I believe, has the strongest ordinances and restrictions on that. And
Correct.
that's where, they build them to meet any standards that are thrown at them in California. So what they've done here, because the equipment fits into all their noise ordinances, they've created an obtuse ordinance that makes it just a general nuisance. So there's nothing quantifiable about it. And because there's nothing quantifiable about it, there's no way for the manufacturers to respond, and that's intentional. And the electric blowers are just about as loud as the gas ones, although they don't have as deep as a resonance in them.
No,
So
they're
the
not.
sound
They're
doesn't
not.
cower.
They
The sound doesn't
definitely
do as
are
much.
not.
Yeah, no.
It's the measurable.
AGSA is going to have to say that the best electric ones. Now, there's some electric ones that are corded that are brutal. They're just as loud, sometimes worse. But in general, most of the battery electric are decibel level rated much lower, and they lack the low frequency component of gas that travels long distances and penetrates barriers. We know that. But there are, to your point, Darius, there are some electric models out there that have a pitch, a harmonic, a kind of a twang to it that can be quite annoying as well. But on the level of gas, no. In our opinion, it's just an opinion, Daria. It's just an opinion.
Although they
Good
definitely
point.
don't have the low decibels which travel through things, which is very helpful to people. I mean, I actually personally have hyperacusis, so all kinds of noises really bother me. And I've lived through a couple of house fires, so I have my lungs are very sensitive. I get asthma very easily, and so I am a big proponent of making things quieter and cleaner. But I think there is a lot of misunderstanding about what how the industry standards are, or how the industry responds, as if they're not trying to fit into things. Anyway, I mean, it's a very multifaceted, complicated conversation, and a lot of it comes down to people just being annoyed by it.
Right. Well, but I'm glad that, Barry, thanks for doing this, because this is what we need. There's a lot of complexities to all of this. And, us that come from the industry, who definitely depend on making a living. Yeah, I mean, we're going to see it through a different lens than someone else. But at least we're talking through some of these things, and perhaps it can lead to some solutions, hopefully.
Yep.
Dan, you made
very
a
well
really
said.
good point.
Yep.
Excuse me just a moment. You made a really good point differentiating between the corded electric versus the battery electric. The corded electric are bloody awful with noise.
Yes.
The pitch is piercing to the ear. Back to the blower bans, just for a quick mention, is municipalities, and especially this is happening in New Jersey, where individual municipalities come up with their own ordinances and everything. It would behoove us all to work at the state level if we're going to come up with a good compromise as far as what should be done and what we should mandate, if anything, that the state level should override the various jurisdictions which may go above and beyond because of emotional debate.
That's a good point, John. And New Jersey, in my opinion, did a very smart move years ago with the fertilizer laws. Different counties and different townships were having their own regulations on fertilizing, and so it was very difficult for practitioners to adjust, going from one town to another and having to do things differently. And the state really did, in my opinion, put together a very good program where it made the regulations statewide throughout New Jersey. But the biggest thing was that they made statewide licensing and statewide education mandatory. And so that solved so many different problems. It made everything the same in the state. It reduced a lot of pollution and educated a lot of people on how to properly do it. So government can be a bad thing, and sometimes government can be a good thing. So anyway, I want to wrap this up for tonight.
Yep.
Again, Dan, thank you very, very much. Great job. Good information. And I really appreciate that you're not pushing an agenda. You're putting the information out there. That's great. Next week, we're gonna go on a different path. Many years ago, I met Dr. Jim Conroy and his partner, Basha Alexandra, who were also known as the Tree Whisperers. And they have developed a spiritual connection with trees to help them heal and grow better. So it's going to be very, very different than your standard tree care. So I invite you to come back and listen to what they have to say. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. We are recording this, so it will be available on our website, and I hope to see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.